in our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, January 24th, here on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea launches several cruise missiles into the West Sea earlier this morning amid prospects of a summit between its leader Kim Jong-un and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin after Russia's presidential election in March. Meanwhile, South Korea continues to witness a demographic decline, with the number of newborns noting a fresh low for the month of November and the number of deaths hitting a new high for the same month. And former US President Donald Trump appears to have won the New Hampshire Republican primary, further cementing his position as the front-runner in the race for the party's presidential nomination. We start here on the Korean Peninsula with news of more provocation by Pyongyang. The regime has launched several cruise missiles towards the sea off its west coast. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the launches took place at around 7 in the morning on this Wednesday. Now, authorities here have ramped up their related surveillance and are closely coordinating with their American counterparts. This latest act of aggression by North Korea comes just days after its testing of a solid-fuel hypersonic missile with intermediate range on January 14th. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has also addressed prospects of a summit between Russia and North Korea in Pyongyang by pointing out that a date has yet to be set, but that the planned summit will most likely take place after Russia's presidential election in March. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
Amid speculation that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be visiting North Korea for talks with Kim Jong-un, the Kremlin said Tuesday that it is unlikely to be before the presidential election in March. According to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, it won't be possible for the Russian leader to visit Pyongyang before the presidential election, with such a visit a longer-term plan. However, Peskov added that Putin will be visiting the north when the two sides can discuss and agree to a set schedule. After meeting with the North Korean leader at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Russian Far East in September last year, Putin accepted Kim's invitation to visit North Korea. Last week, the Kremlin announced that it was coordinating the timing of President Putin's return visit to North Korea through diplomatic channels and would announce it as soon as it was confirmed. Meanwhile, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said Tuesday that the U.S. is keeping an appropriate defensive posture against North Korean threats. He added that Washington is watching the situation on the Korean Peninsula very closely and is confident in the level of defense posture in the region. The comments come amid tensions heightened by Pyongyang's continued weapons test and hardening rhetoric. When asked to comment on a possible visit by Putin to North Korea, Kirby reiterated Washington's concerns over growing military ties between Pyongyang and Moscow. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And speaking of those very concerns, two of Ukraine's largest cities were targeted by Russian missiles Tuesday morning local time. During his nightly video address also on Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that strikes against Kyiv and Kharkiv have killed 18 people and injured 130 others, as residential complexes were among the structures hit. Separately, Ukrainian military authorities have said that half of the 44 missiles fired by Russia were shot down by their defense forces. On the local front, Korea continues to witness a demographic decline, with the number of newborns noting a fresh low for the month of November and the number of deaths hitting a new high for the same month. Our Lee Soo-jin has the latest numbers.
South Korea's birth rate dropped again in November. Data from Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows that the number of births came to 17,531 in November, down 7.6% compared to the same month last year. That's the first time the figure dipped below the 18,000 mark for any month of November since data was first compiled. The number of deaths was also the highest for the month of November, rising 0.3% on year to reach some 30,000. An official from Statistics Korea said this is a reflection of South Korea's aging population and that the agency expects the number of deaths to continue to see an upward trend. This brought the decline in natural population, calculated by subtracting the number of deaths from the number of births, to some 12,000. South Korea has now seen a drop in its natural population for 49 consecutive months. The number of registered marriages in November stood at more than 16,000, falling 4.4% compared to the previous year. Marriage figures last year have shown a rather unsteady trend, with July, August, and September recording on-year declines, but there are more weddings in October than in the previous year. While the official from the agency said further observation is needed, he said that the pent-up demand for weddings after COVID-19 has most likely come to an end after peaking during the second half of 2022 and the first half of last year. The number of divorces was also down nearly 7% from the previous year to almost 8,000 in November. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And inflation expectations here in Korea fell to their lowest level in almost 2 years this month. According to the Bank of Korea on this Wednesday, consumers believe inflation will average 3% over the next 12 months. This latest projection is down 0.2 percentage points on month and also marks a slowdown for the second straight month. The bank is linking the finding to lower global oil prices as well as the government's plan to freeze utility bills for the first half of this year. The bank nonetheless has underscored the importance of monitoring external risk factors that look to affect overall price fluctuations. And harsh winter weather continues here in the country, with the mercury well below 0 degrees Celsius, freezing water meters and pipes, while snow and wind disrupt flight schedules. Our Park Gonu has the latest.
Severe cold weather in South Korea has led authorities to keep in place nationwide cold wave and heavy snow advisories. Most regions in the country saw sub-zero temperatures in the morning. Seoul dropped to minus 11 degrees Celsius with a feels-like temperature of minus 16, while temperatures in other provinces dropped to at least minus 10, with Gangwon-do province plunging to colder than minus 15. Although the highest temperatures during the day in Korea are expected to slightly rise from the day before, between the range of minus 6 to 3 degrees Celsius, it will still be lower than the average for this time of year. The cold weather is anticipated to last until this Friday. There have been several reports of damage due to the weather. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency on Tuesday night, 130 water meters froze and burst. And according to the agency, around 93 passenger ships were unable to leave port, while 144 hiking trails across the country were closed. And due to heavy snow and strong wind on Jeju Island, over 400 flights were canceled alone on the island on Tuesday, leaving around 20,000 people stuck at Jeju Airport. But according to the airport website, flights are operating on Wednesday, but with some delays. The agency also said that as of Sunday, there have been a total of 237 cold-related illnesses, with 7 presumed deaths. Park Gonu, Arirang News.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump appears to have won the New Hampshire Republican primary, further cementing his position as the frontrunner in the race for the party's presidential nomination. AP and CNN projected results to this end shortly after the polls for the primary election closed at 8 p.m. Tuesday, local time. Trump's last remaining Republican opponent, Nikki Haley, congratulated him but claimed the contest is, quote, far from over, with many states left to vote. The former president's latest triumph follows his landslide victory in the Iowa caucus last week, where he took more than half of the votes cast. The United Nations has placed its weight behind the two-state solution, asserting it is the only viable option to tangible peace in the Middle East amid the raging conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Our Eun-jin reports.
Speaking at a high-level UN meeting on Tuesday, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that Israel's occupation of Gaza must end and that a two-state solution is the only way to address the legitimate aspirations of both Israelis and Palestinians.
A lasting end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict can only come through a two-state solution. Israelis must see their legitimate needs for security materialized, and Palestinians must see their legitimate aspirations for a fully independent, viable and sovereign state realized in line with United Nations resolutions, international law and previous agreements.
Guterres added that it was unacceptable for Israel's government to reject a two-state solution to its conflict with the Palestinians, warning that the move would embolden extremists everywhere. Calling for an immediate ceasefire to allow aid delivery, hostage releases, and de-escalation in the Middle East amid risks of broader regional conflict, Guterres also warned that such risks are now becoming a reality, pointing to Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, and Pakistan. He urged all parties to step back from the brink and to consider the horrendous costs of a wider war. White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. would support a longer humanitarian pause in combat in Gaza to ensure hostages could be released and aid brought in. Kirby said U.S. Middle East envoy Brett McGurk would be traveling to the region for active discussions on ensuring the release of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza and securing a humanitarian pause. Without specifying a time frame and cautioning that he would not characterize the discussions as negotiations, he said the conversations were very sober and serious. Meanwhile, as Israel and Hamas are reportedly getting closer to an agreement on a 30-day ceasefire in Gaza, heavy fighting was reported in Khan Yunis, with one of the few remaining open hospitals attacked. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza said Israeli tanks fired on the specialized surgery building and the emergency building of Nasser Hospital, leaving dozens injured. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Over in Geneva, South Korea has called on neighboring China to better protect North Korean defectors. Now, the call came during the UN's review of China's human rights record earlier on Tuesday. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji has details.
During the United Nations review of China's human rights situation held in Geneva on Tuesday, South Korea urged China to provide adequate protection to North Korean defectors. This is the first time that the country has directly mentioned the issue of the human rights of North Korean defectors during such a review of China.
We recommend that China provide adequate protection to its peers of foreign origin, including the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
South Korea's ambassador to the UN also said Seoul recommends Beijing consider adopting a national refugee law as part of its efforts to implement the 1951 Refugee Convention. Under the system called the Universal Periodic Review, or UPR, the United Nations calls for each member state to undergo a peer review of its human rights records every 4.5 years. Ahead of the review, Seoul's foreign ministry explained Tuesday that it aims to step up efforts to protect the rights of North Korean defectors.
We have been actively engaging in diplomatic efforts at bilateral and multilateral levels to ensure that the North Korean defectors residing abroad can safely and quickly travel to their desired destinations. These efforts include close coordination with relevant countries and raising the issue of North Korean defectors at the international level.
This comes after China reportedly deported hundreds of North Korean defectors against their will on October 9th last year. Civic groups in South Korea say as many as 2,600 people have been forcibly sent back to North Korea since last August. And the Human Rights Watch says the defectors, mostly women, could face imprisonment, sexual violence, or even death once they're back in the north. Peunji, Arirang News.
On a light note now, this year's Oscars opens on March 10th in Los Angeles, and the film Past Lives, written and directed by Korean-Canadian director Celine, has been nominated for Best Picture and Original Screenplay. Our Choi Seong has this report.
The movie Past Lives, written and directed by Korean-Canadian director Celine, has been nominated for 2 Oscars. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced the nominees of the 96th Academy Awards on Tuesday local time. The film Past Lives is nominated for Best Picture, and Direct Song is nominated for Writing for Regional Screenplay. This is the 3rd time that a movie by a director of a Korean ethnicity has been selected for Best Picture, following Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho, and Minari, directed by Korean-American Lee Isaac-jung. Past Lives tells the story of 2 childhood sweethearts who reconnect after many years, and the nature of their relationship as they grow apart, living different lives. The movie is Song's debut, and she wrote the plot herself based on an autobiographical story. Many of the scenes in the movie were filmed in Korea, and the majority of the script is also written in Korean. Past Lives will compete in the Best Picture category against the other 9 films, including Oppenheimer, Barbie, Anatomy of a Fall, and Killers of the Flower Moon. The film Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan, received nominations in 13 categories, including Best Director, Actor in a Leading Role, and Film Editing. The movie Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig, has been nominated for 8 categories. 3 female-directed films this year, including Songs, Past Lives, and Justin Triet's Anatomy of a Fall, have been nominated for Best Picture. Meanwhile, Martin Scorsese, director of Killer of the Flower Moon, was nominated for Best Director for the 10th time. The 2024 Oscars will take place on March 10th at Dolby Theatre in Hollywood, Los Angeles. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the local cultural front, Korea is scheduled to play host to a number of renowned art exhibitions this year as well. And for those interested, our Kim Dami has a preview to take a look.
High expectations and excitement surrounds the Gwangju Biennale, which will be held for the 15th time this year. More than 30 countries are expected to participate when the Biennale opens in September. Under the direction of new artistic director Nicola Burrio, there'll be an exhibition that explores a 21st century soundscape based on the Korean traditional pansori folk music. In another highlight for 2024, private galleries are highlighting female-centered fine art. In the spotlight is the Women and Buddhism exhibition that will be held at Hoan Museum, a private art gallery in Yongin City, Gyeonggi-do Province. This exhibition will illuminate East Asian Buddhist art from a female perspective.
This exhibition re-examines East Asian Buddhist art from a perspective with women at the center. Thanks to active cooperation from leading organizations overseas, I think this will serve as a rare opportunity for Koreans to see the treasures of Buddhist art in one location.
The female-centered trend continues across other exhibitions throughout the year. In September, the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art is holding an exhibition featuring Asian female artists from the 1960s to present day. Also in September, the Amore Pacific Museum of Art will showcase the aesthetics of a leading queer artist, Elmgren and Drexet, in a solo exhibition. Celebrating its 20th anniversary, the Liu Museum of Art will hold the largest solo exhibition of Philip Pereno in February, and the Seoul Museum of Art will hold a solo exhibition of architectural master Norman Foster in April to give a perspective into future architecture. Also of interest for fine arts enthusiasts is the return after 20 years of artist Seo Do-ho to the Art Seonje Center. 2 of the country's biggest art events, Frieze Seoul and Korea International Art Fair Seoul, are now preparing their 3rd installment this year, drawing attention to whether they'll surpass last year's achievements in terms of number of visitors, quality of participation entries, and total trade volume of artwork. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Korea's largest theme park, Everland, over in Yongin, says its giant panda Fubao will be returning to China come April. This message was posted on its website, which also shared that Fubao will be accommodated in a separate venue for 1 month prior to her return to the research base of giant panda breeding in Sichuan province, in line with international guidelines regarding wildlife. This gives Fubao until early March to bid farewell to friends here in South Korea. Fubao was born on July 20th, 2020, and is part of China's panda diplomacy, serving as a symbol of friendship between Beijing and the host government.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In Turkey, the country's parliament approved Sweden's NATO membership on Tuesday. The decision to ratify Sweden's accession came after 20 months of delays, which followed Sweden's application in May 2022. After over 4 hours of parliamentary debate, 287 out of 346 Turkish MPs voted in favor of the bill, approving the motion late Tuesday night. Sweden's Prime Minister, Ulf Kristersson, responded to the news on social media, saying his country was 1 step closer to joining the military alliance. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is expected to sign the bill into law in the coming days. Turkey's approval leaves Hungary as the only country still left to ratify Sweden's NATO membership. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has reportedly invited his Swedish counterpart for negotiations on the approval of Sweden's membership. In Thailand, an international manhunt is underway for an Indian fugitive who allegedly murdered and dismembered a job seeker in the Thai capital of Bangkok. The victim, a 35-year-old Myanmar national, was found dead and mutilated inside a freezer by other job seekers. The suspect, 22-year-old recruiter Pragadish Kumar Sundaravel, was seen on CCTV footage buying the brand new freezer in which the victim was stored. Police also discovered a chainsaw and 2 large blood-stained knives hidden in a box. Kumar allegedly rented accommodation for 6 Myanmar nationals in Bangkok and charged them around $620 each for document processing and job applications. The suspect reportedly left Thailand for Chennai, India, on January 20th. In Germany, the country's constitutional court said in a landmark ruling on Tuesday that the far-right party, Die Heimat, will not receive any public funding for the next 6 years, as its values and goals are unconstitutional and aim to hinder the country's democracy. The court's vice president, Judge Doris Koenig, said that Die Heimat aims to replace the existing constitutional system with an authoritarian state based on an ethnic people's community, which the court said undermines human dignity of minorities and migrants. Back in 2017, the court said that Die Heimat, formerly known as the National Democratic Party, resembled Adolf Hitler's Nazi Party with racist backbone policies, including anti-Muslim and anti-Semitic ideologies and rejection of transgender people. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists has kept its doomsday clock set at 90 seconds to midnight, citing concerns about the potential use of nuclear weapons in the Russo-Ukrainian war and the horrors of modern war in Israel and Gaza, as well as the worsening climate crisis. The metaphorical doomsday clock was set to 90 seconds to midnight last year, the closest to midnight since its establishment after the Second World War. President and Chief Executive of the organization, Rachel Bronson, said that 90 seconds to midnight is profoundly unsustainable, adding that trends continue to point ominously towards global catastrophe. Kim Si-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. What looks to be and hopefully is the last round of season's cold snap is freezing much of Korea. Biting winds are making it colder, with a cold wave alerts remaining in place for much of the central parts of the country. Meanwhile, west of Jeollado provinces and Jeju are seeing continuing snow with a heavy snow advisory in place. Jeju will see more snow through Thursday, and mountainous regions on the island could see up to 20 centimeters. Chungcheongdo province will receive 1 to 5 centimeters of snowfall. Athletes from around the world are also enduring the cold here in Korea in one of the coldest spots in the country. Stay warm and safe. Afternoon highs in Seoul will top out at -4, which is about 4 degrees higher than yesterday. The rest of the country looks to have highs that are 2 to 5 degrees higher this afternoon. Now we'll notice more bearable temperatures from tomorrow afternoon under sunny skies, except on Jeju with more snow in the forecast there. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour here in Korea. We return with our panel session right after this break. Thank you for now.